No mai hoki mai, welcome to another episode of Quite Simply Politics. I am your host Holly. We have another episode of our election series. I'm joined by an MP who I really respect, have had a lot to do with over the past few years and even before I was a lobbyist, and was supposed to interview him last week, but unfortunately current events got in the way, but we will touch on that, and that is the MP for Whangaparaoa, Mark Mitchell. Welcome.
Thanks, Holly. Thank you for having me on.
Welcome to our podcast.
Well, I love being here on your podcast and coming up into the office this morning.
Yeah.
I remember that I was here for the opening.
Yes.
And you've got a plaque there with myself and Pirihimana.
Yes.
That we're here for the opening, and it's so good to see you guys doing so well. You got a great team here.
Thank you.
And to be able, that must be over a year ago.
2 years.
It was 2 years ago. Yeah. So to know that you're doing so well.
And this
awesome.
Space didn't look like this when you were
No,
last
it
in
didn't.
it.
You've done well. This is. I'll tell you what. I've been doing a few podcasts. Podcasts seem to be the in thing now, and I've been doing a few of them. And I have to say that your podcast studio is the best by far. So well done.
Oh my God, you heard it here first, and then now we're going to get a very easy podcast. No hard questions.
Well, that'd be nice. That'd be a change.
We were supposed to do this last week,
Yeah.
and you were out campaigning, and then
Yep.
something happened that got in the way. And we don't have to talk about it too much, but it is, I think, indicative of the sort of heightened sense of crime and things that are happening. Can you share with our listeners and watchers sort of what happened last week that meant that we had to postpone this episode?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and thank you for the text message straight away to say, look, we've seen what's unfolding at the Albany Bus Station and completely understand if you can't make it.
Yeah.
I just happened to be down in Albany at the time. And of course, it's hugely unsettling for the community. It's pretty consistent what we've been seeing right throughout the whole country in terms of violent crime. It was an awful situation. It was midday at the Albany Bus Station, and 2 commuters were attacked by someone with a knife, as it turns out, a 16-year-old offender, which sadly, up and down this country, there's too many young people now carrying knives, presenting them and wanting to use them. So yeah, it was a tough situation.
What has really happened in your view? And obviously we all live lives with different reflections and different lenses and different communities, but this idea that we need to be weaponized in this country, you know, like, why do you think that there's this increased prevalence of people becoming
More violent,
weaponized?
carrying weapons.
Yeah.
Look, I think that you had an incoming government 6 years ago, and this is just my own view, and they have created a culture of impunity in the country. And by that I mean you don't see any political leaders taking accountability or responsibility for anything. You don't see in our criminal system now really any consequences, or certainly not consequences that are matching the seriousness of the offending. And this has created a very permissive environment where, whether it be youth and juvenile offenders that are committing ram raids and aggravated robberies, just general disorder and street violence, right through to our hardened adult gangs that are out there and thinking they can take over public roads, take over towns. I was in Coromandel Town last week, where a gang had come into town and basically kept them under siege, bashing people, damaging property, stealing property, and and the townspeople feeling like they didn't really even have freedom of movement around their own town. We saw the same situation in Podiki, where you had a gang-related homicide, and the mongrel mob, 600 mongrel mob mobsters arrive in town, schools closing, basically the whole town shut down. This Labor government have created a very permissive environment for our criminals to operate in. And of course, that has put enormous stress and pressure back on our frontline police officers, and it's inherently made communities feel less safe.
So I want to touch on that because, as you know, and it's one of the things that we definitely bond over, is that you're a former police officer on the front line. I come from a police family. I think about this risk constantly because it is a real thing that you actually have to deal with. What would you say to our police officers right now in terms of what they're having to deal with, in terms of the way in which society is essentially unfolding right now?
Yeah, I mean, I have enormous respect for all of our police officers, but in particular our frontline police officers who, without a doubt, are having to deal with a huge increase in violence, having to deal with firearms incidents just about on a daily basis. we had that active shooter in downtown Auckland
Yeah.
recently. I mean, huge respect for our tactical officers, our AOS and STG that responded to that. That was a very difficult situation to deal with.
Mm.
You had a active shooter in a big building with multiple levels. You had members of the public that had already been shot and killed. You had other members of the public that are at risk of being taken hostage. And our AOS and STG members moved through there very quickly, isolated the offender in the elevator shaft, and and resolved that, and had the best possible outcome we could have had in terms of no further loss of life, no civilians taken hostage. But on that same day, Holly, there were 5 other firearms related incidents they had to deal with that weren't reported in the media.
5.
So it just gives you an indication of actually what they're having to deal with. It is an extremely difficult environment out there for them. I don't think that they've had the best leadership they could have had. I don't think they really get a sense that anyone's got their back. I think they feel that they're constrained in terms of how they're actually policing, and that they can't roll up over the top of these violent gangs. They don't feel like they're supported by the courts. Often they can be out arresting an offender on a Friday night, and that same offender is back out reoffending on Saturday. So I think there's quite a high level of frustration that's currently sitting in the front line. You join the police because you want to serve your community and you want to keep them safe. And they feel like they're not doing their job properly if they can't get on top of that.
Yeah.
There's some things that are outside their control. And the things that have been outside their control has been a very soft on crime Labor government that sent all the wrong messages to our criminal justice system.
So there's one thing that I find extremely abhorrent, which I see, and I value your opinion. It's about this idea that ngā Pirihimana, so the police, and all the officers within it are inherently racist, which, as somebody who's proud wahine Māori with a family that's committed to service, as you said, like service to community, I find that one of the most lowest levels of rhetoric that I can see coming out of politics. What would you say, especially to our Māori and our ethnic officers, in terms of that label being placed on them?
Yeah, look, I do reject that, and I'm really pleased to hear you take the same position. I think that I'm very proud of our police service, and as you said, I had a 14-year policing career. I come from the ranks. I absolutely loved working on the front line. Most of my service was over in Gisborne, covering from Ruatoria down to Wairua. Most of it was on the police dog section and the armed defender squad. When I was serving out of Gisborne, a large proportion of our staff there were Maori that were from the area, and I'd have to say that I never witnessed any overt racism. The police in New Zealand serve without fear or favour. And if there was racism, it would be stamped out very quickly. It just would not be tolerated. So I get quite frustrated when I continue to see commentators and people saying and pointing the finger at our police, calling them racist or saying that they're suffering from unconscious bias. I reject that. I think that our police officers have to deal with whatever society throws up. And the reality of it is, if we have overrepresentation in our corrections, which we do, of Maori, 54%, that is not the fault of the police. That is not the fault of the corrections system or even our judiciary. Those are the social issues that we've got to be brave enough and strong enough to stand up and start to deal with. The social investment model, getting into people's lives much earlier and stopping them from coming into the criminal justice system. And I was humbled. I was contacted last week by Māmai Tukahe down in who was an advisor to the Kingitanga down in Tainui, and she rang me, and I was expecting her to say to me, I don't agree with your youth justice policies, and can we have a debate around that? And which I would have been very open to, because I like being able to talk people through exactly what we're trying to achieve. But she didn't say that. She said, I support your youth justice policies, and I also agree with you that whether it be iwi, whether it be community groups, whether it be local government, central government, we haven't got it right. And actually stepping forward together and saying we're putting a line in the sand. We're not going to tolerate the intergenerational gang membership and the harm that does anymore. We're going to take positive steps to start to address that. And I spent an hour and a half on Tainui radio talking to her about it, and she inspired me to get out there and keep doing what we're doing. And I'm very convicted in terms of what we need to do. But those sort of conversations just reinforce the importance of it.
And I mean, mad respect to the Waikato Tainui, because they are some of the most incredible lobbyists
Are
I've
they?
ever
Are
come
they?
across.
Yeah. Well, she was very good at lobbying me, so.
Perfect example. Now, let's move to the election campaign right now and sort of change up the energy of this, because I know we can talk about that stuff and, labor the point, but, there are some good stuff happening. Tell me how it's been on the campaign trail for
Yeah,
you right now.
I've loved the campaign trail.
Yeah.
Because I like the human contact.
Yeah.
And I've been up and down the country really, probably for the last 3 or 4 months. I think I've done over 40 public meetings.
Jesus.
And meetings in the community. Yeah, no, there's been a lot of public meetings. All of them.
Have you done more than Christopher Luxon?
No, I'd say Chris. Chris
That's a lot.
Hey, Chris draws a bigger crowd than me, Holly. Mine have been law and order and
Yeah.
public safety meetings.
Yeah.
And so it allows me to get into the communities, which I've really enjoyed.
Mm.
It feels like there's a mood for change out there,
Yeah.
without a doubt. People are very sensitive to the fact they know, inherently that their communities are not as safe as what they were. They're tired of dealing with the crime. And of course, I think they also recognise that our police are under enormous pressure.
So we're doing 4 of these election series kōrero. Our first one was with Priyanka Radhakrishna.
Yep.
And so I asked her what was the funniest or most interesting thing that had happened on the doorstep. And hers was that she talked to a lovely, more elderly woman, and the kōrero was about where the voters sort of being swing voters, but instead of saying swing voters, the wahine said swingers. So share with me what has been the sort of funniest or most interesting or memorable moment on the doorstep for you this campaign.
Oh, that's a good question. So I definitely haven't knocked on the door and said, "Oh, we're a bunch of swingers."
We had a giggle. I was like, "No, we so know what she was saying too."
I think probably the funniest memory and the thing I really enjoyed was at one of my public meetings. There were 4 ladies that turned up, and they would have all been in their 80s.
Yeah.
And they'd had shirts made up, and they were coming forward to present themselves as my new diplomatic protection squad. Should we be successful October 14? They said they felt that I needed protection from the gangs, and they were willing to take that role on. And I said, well, maybe we should call you Mitch's Angels then. And so
oh my
yeah,
god,
yeah,
I love that. Okay, we need to get you a speaker box then.
Yeah.
Oh,
I said, can you come on the road with me? So
oh, that is so lovely. Isn't that sweet?
Yeah, it was lovely.
What other things have people been sharing with you on the campaign trail?
I think that people inherently, cost of living is really tough.
Yeah.
Even up in my patch, I've got young couples, double income.
Yeah.
That when your mortgage goes from a 2 or a 3 to a 6 or 7, and you're talking about $400 or $500 a week, you cannot magic that up. And so they're having to access things like food banks. It's never happened before. So it is tough. So without a doubt, the economy, cost of living, and then a close third behind that is law and order and public safety. Even in my own electorate of Whangaparāoa, we've been hit pretty hard. We've managed to keep the gangs out for a long time, but we had the Hells Angels buy commercial property in Silverdale and set up a pad there. We've been hit with ram raids and aggravated robberies. Walker and Halls in the Silverdale Mall was hit with a pretty savage aggravated robbery. We have had disorder and violence and robberies at our Silverdale Bus Station, which meant I called a public meeting. I got police there, I got Auckland Transport staff, our councillors, local board, and the community, and we came up with a pretty good, robust plan that essentially meant a higher police profile, and it's been effective in getting on top of the problem. Well, I had a meeting with with Destination Orewa, which is represents our retailers, and I went there with our police area commander, and but they just highlighted the fact that minor crime, shoplifting, things like that, massively increased. Retail offenders now willing to be abusive and use violence. I had the manager of the Whangaparāoa Mall call me about 3 weeks ago, just absolutely beside himself, saying that they've had enough. His security staff constantly having youth present knives and things like that. So we have not been immune to it. We are definitely feeling it without a doubt up in my own community, and that is pretty consistent around the rest of the country.
Is there anything local that you're pushing for, or that you have been pushing for, that might have been like a sort of, I don't want to say pet project because that kind of sounds a bit, ugh, but something that you're pushing for that you've still got on your radar and you want to achieve for your electorate?
Roading infrastructure is still really important for us.
Yeah.
A big part of our population is up on the Whangaparaoa Peninsula.
Yeah.
A few years ago, we had there was a fatal motor accident at the Vipons Road intersection. It basically cut the whole peninsula off, and it just reminded us how vulnerable we are. In particular, to some sort of big civil defence event. And the irony of that was, as they said, well, the message that came back from local government was at the time was use the ferries, but the problem was the old ferry drive was stuck in the traffic. So yeah, so that wasn't gonna work too well.
You know what you do next? Helicopters.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you need about 5,000
The
of them.
most expensive form of transport.
That's right. I'm gonna get the Navy to send a couple of their frigates in. But look, the infrastructure is really important for us. I was very proud of the fact that I delivered the Pūhoi to Wartworth. Everyone now raves about that piece of road. It's definitely brought Northland closer to us. It's everyone travelling off the Kowhai coast. It's much safer. Penlink is really important. We've got to get Penlink, and we need a 4-lane Penlink, not a 2-lane Penlink. That project's been around a long time. I remember being a young shepherd shepherding on Weety Station, which is the Penlink runs through Weety Station, and putting in the first stake going in the ground, and that was over 30 years ago. So it's well overdue.
Wait. What year was that?
That was back in the 80s.
Oh, so pre my birth.
Yes, it was. It's before you even born. Yeah. You weren't even around when the first stake went in the ground. For Penlink, that's how long it's been around for.
God.
Good news is fully consented, and we've committed. We're going to make it 4 lanes, not 2. The current commitment is to 2. It's ridiculous. It needs to be 4, and that'll make a big difference for us. We've got a couple of other issues around retaining the ferry service out of Gulf Harbour. Making sure that the golf club, which sadly has just gone into liquidation, that is developed properly and it's not sort of intensified and doesn't sort of ruin the environment up there for the existing community. KO has been difficult for us. They bought land in Bonaire, which is in Millwater, another part of our community, but off the peninsula. And decided that they were going to build quite a big social housing development in there without any consultation at all with our community. So I worked very closely with some of our residents who were very active and formed a leadership group there, and we were able to get that stopped. We're not against housing, having public housing up in our area. We want more Kiwi build. We want to be able to give young couples that have to move out of the area the opportunity to buy a home and stay in the area. But emergency housing, that KO has shown that they can't manage that. They've shown that it's a wrecking ball through communities with the importing of gangs and violence and antisocial behaviour. And so, it was important that we took a stand against that and that we had a reset, and there's actually some proper, genuine consultation done with the broader community in terms of what do we want to see delivered around public housing.
And you've got some very strong iwi Māori organisations in and around your electorate who could be a perfect conduit to not need a big government department to come in and stake their claim.
As you know, Tama Potaka is taking the lead on that. He's already got a proven track record of delivering social housing, and we believe in working with iwi and social housing providers. They're the ones that are in the community, they're most sensitive to what needs to be delivered, and we're fully supportive. We are supportive of community housing providers. They are very good at what they do. I feel very lucky. I've always had a very strong and trusted relationship with local iwi, and they recognise and are part of the community, and that's the way that they've chosen to always approach their leadership within the community. It's been very good. Unfortunately, we've had a Labor government that's, in my views, has actually been bad for race relations in New Zealand. They've been very divisive, and there's got to be a focus on unity again and focus on the good stuff that happens.
I mean, you know what my personal view is of government doing stuff that basically community and or business can do themselves. else. Just move out of the way
I
and
agree
let
with you.
business and or community do it.
I agree with you. And the thing that I loved about the fact when Chris Luxon became leader is because I agree with you completely. And I've witnessed this in the police where you go through a cycle of centralisation, decentralisation. The thing that I really like about Chris Luxon and his leadership is that he believes in devolution. He doesn't want bureaucrats in Wellington sitting down there telling local communities what the best thing is for them. Local communities know what they need, let them identify it, and then let central government come in and support that and deliver it. But on saying that, it then becomes incumbent upon local communities to get together, work across local government, community organisations, iwi, in partnership with government and get things done, get things delivered.
What have you been doing to sort of recalibrate yourself this election? Have you been doing anything to like unwind, relax, or do you just focus on go, 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 go?
To be honest with you, it's just been go, go, go. I'll tell you why. Because I don't want to leave anything on the table come October 14. This is my 5th general election. I feel it's my most important one. We've got to change the government because they are taking us down rabbit holes that are just nothing but bad for the country. And we want to get us back on track again. So in terms of relaxation, my dad taught me how to spearfish when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I love the ocean. Spearfishing and being in the ocean has always been my passion, and that's how I relax.
You're a big fisher as well, right?
No,
you enjoy
I'm not.
fishing?
I'm not a big rod fisherman.
No?
I'm a spear fisherman, so I'm a spearo.
Oh.
Yeah, I like being in the water. Being in the water is my relaxation. That's how I get to switch off. Cell phones don't work very well. 10
Have
metres
you
in.
ever lost your cell phone in the water?
No, I haven't. I've been really lucky. Yeah, it's never gone overboard.
What's tell me about how do you actually do that? Like, what do you, I don't even know. Are you on something or?
Well, spearfishing is free diving with a spear.
Oh.
Yeah.
So do you have a tank?
No.
So you just hold your breath?
Yes. Yeah, it's all about breath hold.
And then, so do you have goggles or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have
and
goggles.
then you
have goggles, wetsuit. Bit of a plug here for wetty wetsuits because one of the guys that I dive with when I can is Darren Shields, who is the founder and owner of that store. Very, very big in spearfishing around New Zealand. I've got mates down at Kuatunu there. Luke from Luke's Kitchen. Julian Hansford and those guys. Hopefully I'll get out there and do a bit of spearfishing with them over the summer. Although I have to say it's going to be a very short summer break, Holes, if we're back in government.
Oh.
Yeah, I think
you're going to be back in. So okay. So
if we're back in government, then the expectation is we'll work right up till Christmas, literally, and then we'll have a very short break over summer.
Right.
And we'll be back into it. There's a lot to do.
So you're telling my staff that the Christmas holiday that I may have planned for them is now not going to look like. So to my staff, when you watch this back, if the government changes, you have Mark Mitchell to blame.
Yeah, that's right. You
not your boss.
I'm energised and I am convicted, and I had to go through a bit of a personal process because I'm very proud of my policing career, but I also had a business career overseas, and so when I came back, my focus although public safety was really important, my focus had shifted to trade and economic opportunities. I didn't feel back then, bearing in mind that sort of 2010, I was overseas from sort of 2002 through to 2011. I didn't feel like we were doing as well as we could. I saw very bullish UK companies, American companies, Indian companies kicking doors in, taking advantage of the opportunities. I didn't think that NZTA was working well for our businesses and companies here in New Zealand. And John Key, I remember having a conversation with John Key about it. He says, look, we've made some changes. Peter Chris is coming in. They have been much better. NZTA's got very focused, and they have the right people in the right place. I
think they're actually very good.
They are
now,
they are. They're doing well.
Come a long way.
They have come a long way, and but look, but when Chris became leader, I asked him for the police portfolio, and I did that because it was for me. I was looking at this country that I love, and I was thinking, we're starting to look like a third world country with the amount of crime, with some of the issues that we're facing, the lawlessness that's in the country. And so I actually rang Chris and I said, listen, would you consider giving me the police portfolio? And I sort of outlined my reasons. And so I felt very lucky that he gave me the portfolio. And I feel very lucky that he has 100% supported me in that portfolio over the last sort of 12 plus months, or since he's been leader. Well, that'd be 2 years now. In that time, we've had 4 police ministers. You've
Yeah, what's going on there?
because in my view, Labor have not had a proper focus on police and on public safety, and so to them it's been. I don't want to say it's been a game, but it's certainly in my view, they certainly haven't taken it as seriously as what they should have.
It's very hard to encourage stability within an organization when the top is constantly being
Yeah.
shuffled, and then that means priorities will consistently change.
Yeah, I don't think they've had the leadership they deserve. I've been quite public about that. I think that Andrew Costa sort of embraced this policing by consent. I think it had confused his staff. No one really knew what that meant, what they could do. There were policy changes that meant that police couldn't respond to violent crime. You know, detection rates started to drop. You know, for example, with failing to stop for police,
Yeah.
only about 4 or 5% of the offenders were ever actually located or apprehended. You know, in relation now to back in 2017, for every 2 jobs that came in, one would be responded to. Now, for every 10 jobs that come in, one would be responded to. So they've gone from a 50% to a 10%.
Golly.
Yeah, and you know,
and I was even thinking, God, 1 and 2 being responded to is kind of like a bit, you know,
yeah,
because it's essentially half being that, but now it's not even. Oh God.
yeah. So I think that's why I'm quietly confident there's a lot that we can do in the first 12 months. I want the police to know that they can feel like someone's got their back.
Yeah.
And they're actually going to support them.
Do you think it makes a difference with your frontline experience?
It does for me because number one, they can't pull the wool over my eyes.
Yeah.
When I actually took over the portfolio, and they tried a fair bit of that.
Really?
Yeah, but look, although I acknowledge, and my policing career was 30 years ago, policing is pretty much the same. You know, not a lot of things change. You still got the bad guys, and you still got. So I just think that. You know, I just think that's been very helpful for me. I think the other thing is that a lot of the people that I served with are still in the police, whether or not they are still right from frontline dog handlers through to deputy commissioners, right through the service. So it's given me the ability to have some real insights and windows into what's currently happening in our modern policing environment. So yes, without a doubt. And by the way, I just love the service. I just think I'm very proud of it. I think that we've got one of the best police services in the world, and you know, I'll always stand by that. It's just that at the moment they haven't. I personally believe they haven't had the leadership they deserve. They haven't had the support, the resources on the front line. They haven't had the additional powers that they need. And if you start to give them that and power them up, stand back and watch and see what they can do. They're a very, very impressive police service.
Yeah. So you're not going to have a long break. It sounds like if you get into government, you're going to be working hard. But aside from spear fishing, what else are you going to be doing?
I don't know if there's going to be that much spear fishing going on. I don't know if I can promise you too much sashimi this summer, Holly.
Anything else though on the cards? Like, is there anywhere you love to go with your whānau in summertime?
Look, we've made a commitment. To be honest with you, I've made a commitment for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to throw it. This is going to be a 24/7 job.
Okay.
It's not going to be an easy one. To turn things around, and it's just going to require a lot of focus and a lot of energy. And in my mind, I've made that commitment. And I just want to get on with it. I will still try to have some work-life balance. But I'm just realistic, and my family's realistic about what that looks like. And I've got their full support, and they're 100% behind me. So,
because I know you have a real tight-knit family, your lovely wife, or they're all like supportive, and that's really like interesting that they're all right in behind that.
Yeah, and look, I'm very lucky that and very excited that my oldest daughter, is 20 weeks pregnant. So, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Is that going to be your first? We'll call your first.
It is. It is. I do. Her husband. I have another grandchild, Logan, Logan, who I love as if he's mine, but he's Sylvie's husband's son. So yes, the first
bloodline one.
Yes, that's right. And so I'm very, very excited about that.
Oh my gosh.
She's teaching up. Both of them are teachers, and they're teaching up in a remote Aboriginal community up in the Northern Territory at the moment.
Oh, wow.
And they arrived back yesterday. So it's very nice to have them home for a bit, and very excited about the new baby arriving.
I'm very thankful you didn't cancel and you still came, because I
No.
probably would have wanted to hang out with you.
Well, actually, they've bought a new car,
Yep.
or they bought a car, so they've got something here while they're here, and
Yeah, cool.
they're heading down the line to pick that up. So
Love it. Okay.
there's no problem coming
Oh,
and seeing
great.
you, Hoss.
Oh, so well, we will wrap up shortly. But what we will do is we always wrap up with the bowl of bravery, which is questions that have an interesting flavour to them. These ones are particularly around the election, so it's sort of got an election feel. But before we do this, to ask you to reach in and get a question, is there anything that you want to share with our listeners and our watchers in regards to this year's election? Like, any final thoughts?
I just think that it's really important for people to get out and vote. And I guess just remind everyone that we've made a huge sacrifice as a country to protect our democracy and to give everyone the right to get out and vote. Have a look at the parties, have a look at what they stand for, have a look at their policies, and then make a decision, and then just make that little bit of effort to get out to a polling booth and vote, either early or on E-Day.
Yeah. I'm gonna be voting early.
Yeah, I notice. I love the fact in your jar of what do you call it? Jar of truth.
Bowl of
Yeah.
bravery, jar of truth, same thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
bowl of bravery, bowl of truth. That you have got every party there, except to Party Mary Party.
Yeah.
Could you not find any?
They never come to anything I invite them to.
Oh, don't they?
I've invited them on. We invited them on the other podcast they do, 3 Girls, 1 Beehive. I've invited them to several events. They just.
I don't understand that, because I have to admit. I have to admit that I like going and look, RNZ, it doesn't matter. Martin Bradbury, one of the best debates I've ever had was with Martin Bradbury on radio. Like the way to actually be able to have a good argument debate is to get in front of the people that don't believe in what you're trying to do, and then try and convince them that what you're doing is right.
It's very much the Te Ao Māori way. You do things kanohi ki te kanohi, and then you have a cup of tea afterwards. Like, that's how you leave it. I don't understand. No, so, I mean, I thought, well, I've got somebody from all of the, like, 4 parties, and then, I actually don't, because I couldn't get Nicole on, because she's super busy, but she had said yes, so I couldn't get it. But I thought, like,
you should try Nicole. Nicole would be very good.
Oh, yeah, she said yes, 100%. It's just really hard. You're all quite difficult to get in the diaries because of various things happening. Yeah,
well, I mean, you're right. Everyone's out on the hustings,
Yeah, but I can't, I don't know. That's a question for Te Pāti Māori, is why they never come to anything.
Well, there you go. There's a challenge.
Thank you.
And you know that I'm going to take a blue one, don't you?
Yeah, good. I made them all extra hard.
Yeah. I thought that might be the case. What, and the red ones are all really easy, are they?
Yeah, I'm going to pay you guys all back when I used to have to do Patsy questions on commerce, which go in the house.
Hey, you know what? They say anything worth having you got to fight for, right?
Yeah,
so
100%.
Let's give it a go. Do you want me to, am I giving it to you to unfold?
No,
or?
you do it.
Okay.
Well, that personal responsibility here. You do it yourself.
Okay. Whose handwriting is this?
Probably mine. Okay, do you want
It's as bad as mine. Jeepers. I'm glad there's someone as bad as me.
Because we're orators, we're not writers.
Well, you're an orator. I don't know about me. Okay. Who has led the best campaign in political history, in your opinion, and why?
Yeah.
That's actually a really good question.
Thank you.
Do you want to know the honest truth? I think I'm going to call it for Christopher Luxon.
You reckon?
Yep, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because I mean, I got to know Chris before he came into politics, and I admire any Kiwi that works hard and goes offshore and makes it in a really tough environment, right? And he did that. At the same time, he's a man of integrity and values, and I just I got huge admiration for him, and Sarah and I are lucky that we've got a good friendship with him and Amanda. And when you think about what he's done, he's come into politics. This is his first term, and he took the party on, and he reunited and fixed and repaired got us ready for an election, and reinstated, gave public confidence again that we're ready to govern.
Yeah.
And then he's come into the campaign. And by the way, in that first sort of 18 months, the media hammered him, right, and put him under enormous pressure. A lot of it, in my view, unfair, but I would say that.
Yeah.
But it actually toughened him up, and it showed that whether or not he had the resilience and the toughness to actually absorb that pressure, which of course he did. And now he's leading us in a great campaign where it's every single day out on the hustings, lots of energy. He inspires and encourages the team to keep going. And I think that this is, like I said, this is one of the most important campaigns for us as a country. And I think that he's going to be a great Prime Minister. And I think he's going to be the Prime Minister that we need right now for this time in history. So he's got the background, he's got the knowledge, he's got the experience, he's got the heart, he's got the integrity, and I think that he'll be a great leader, and I think that he's doing a great job on the campaign.
So what you're really saying to me is I should have put an asterisk on that question and said you cannot say you're current. And what I would say too is hat tip to you and everyone who puts themselves out there to campaign, because campaigning is hard.
Yeah, it's look, for me it's probably not as hard because I genuinely love the human contact.
Yeah.
And it sort of fills your tank a bit.
Yeah.
Now it's probably a little unfair because 2020 was a tough campaign when Kiwis inherently are quite polite.
Yeah.
When they won't look you in the eye, you know that things are not going well, right? But this campaign's been very different, and there's been lots of positive interaction. And that sort of fills the tank a bit and energises you and keeps you going.
Yeah, amazing. So if our listeners and our watchers want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, you can text me on 021 075 9501.
Yep.
That is my own personal number. A lot of people have always been...
Are you sure you want that out?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, my number has always been available to everyone in my electorate.
Holy moly!
Because unfortunately, we have had weather events.
Yeah.
We've had all sorts of things where people sometimes feel like they need to reach out to someone, and it's I can put my hand on my heart and say that has never been abused.
Really?
That I've never had any sort of nasty messages or no, it's been respected, and I've just felt personally. I'm not saying this to anyone else. It's just been me and the way that I've wanted to deal with my electorate and the job that I do. That's what I've done.
Wow.
They can obviously use my email address, which is mark.mitchell@parliament.gov.nz. Look, to be honest with you, Holes, the toughest part of this campaign for me is because I've had police. It's meant that I've had to get around the country and support our candidates, support our MPs, and hold public meetings and allow the public to come out and have their say. And give me direct feedback, which has actually been really important. The tough thing for me is it's taken me away from my own electorate a bit during the campaign trail, and I've actually really felt that.
Yeah.
So sort of as we head into the last 2 weeks, I'm going to try and be as present as I can inside my own patch.
Yeah, great. You're going to get out a new market, get back over there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
To come here, share about things that are super, super important for this country to talk about, and also just having the kōrero. Like,
absolutely.
Being able to talk about these quite hard issues in a way that's actually quite, mana enhancing, feels good to talk about it and actually gets the narrative going, right?
Yeah, I love these talks because often with on the campaign trail you're sort of limited to sound bites.
Right?
Yeah. And you can never really have a proper discussion or a proper debate or try to get your point across when you're living in a soundbite.
Yeah.
And I get it. That's how media works, and people need to consume things quickly and move on. But it's nice to come into this sort of podcast environment where you can actually have a bit of a chat.
I've got to say, it's definitely my domain. After, with my papa and all his experience, he said, your soundbites suck. I realised, it's probably because I'm not made for soundbite. Soundbite sound media. But
I think your signature is your laugh holes. It always has been.
We know. Hence why producer Nayan has my mic further away from me than yours is closer to you.
I'll tell you what, that's what I always loved when we were actually last time we were in government in the beehive. I always knew when you were coming because I could hear your laugh. And normally in the elevator before you even hit the floor.
I know. And I used to, when I'd appear on level 9, they'd be like, "What do you want?" Before I'd even got there, I'd be like, "Coming to Chicken
That's right.
Thank you so much.
You're
Best
welcome.
of luck for the campaign. And
Yeah,
I
thank you.
really look forward to chatting with you in the future, and have a really beautiful, short summer break.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Oz. I appreciate it.
That-
Hopefully have me back post October 14.
Yeah, would love to.
As Minister of Police.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to come back
Amazing.
and give everyone an update.
That's another episode of Quite Simply Politics. Thank you everyone for joining. Of course, if you want to reach out to Mark, he shared lots of amazing contact details, including his number, so get in touch with him. Remember to like and subscribe and share this with anyone that you think may be interested in politics, so we can get them as part of our Quite Simply Politics whānau too. We'll see you in the next episode, which is coming up shortly. Ka kite!